Sometimes it's the simplest tips that make the biggest difference in our crochet projects. And today I'm sharing 6 things that I recently learned from one of my favorite and one of the most talented crochet designers. I'm on a mission to improve my crochet techniques, and I don't just want to make more crochet projects, I actually want to get better at crochet. And imagine my delight as I was wandering through my local library when I stumbled upon a book from one of my favorite crochet designers, Janie Crowe. I had no idea that she had even written a book, but the title caught my attention and its perfect crochet finish. Of course, I checked it out immediately, and as soon as I got home, I started going through the book, and I was so impressed by all of these tips and tricks, and they're already changing the way I look at how I crochet. So today I'm going to share some of my favorite tips as well as some of the techniques that I'm testing out now. And in case you're not familiar with Janie Crowe, I want to share this amazing crochet designer with you. I fell in love with Janie's work very early on in my crochet journey, and the one that I attempted was Frida's Flowers, and I even bought the full kit, and I was in the process of making this beautiful blanket that was inspired by the Mexican artist Frida Kahlo, and this is when I discovered my sensitivities to 100% cotton, and that is the kit that I bought. Now, I won't go into all the details about why I don't use 100% cotton, but it just causes soreness in my hands and my joints. So I'm not going to be able to finish it with the yarn that I already have, but it's on my bucket list to remake this blanket in something a little bit stretchier like an acrylic yarn. But every single one of her designs is absolutely spectacular. They are so gorgeous. Some of my favorites are Persian tiles, fields of gold, and Eastern jewels. And these are just to name a few. Her work is absolutely extraordinary, and that's why I was so excited to see a book of tips from her because she is the master at crochet. I actually love the book so much that I went ahead and bought it from Amazon the very next day because I needed to make sure that I had a copy that I could keep on my bookshelf forever. I've been reading this book like a novel, front to back. I want to read every single tip that Janie Crowe is willing to give to us, and I have found it to be so incredibly insightful. And one of her first tips really struck me, and I think it's something that we as crocheters don't talk enough about. Choosing the right crochet hook is such an important part of any crocheter's journey. It sounds very simple and it can make all the difference, but the problem is that we can't take these crochet hooks for a test drive at the craft store. Janie points out that you might have to buy and try, and that is a very good point. Picking up different styles and brands of crochet hooks is a way that you can test drive them, and you can send the ones back that you don't like. Most craft stores and Amazon will take returns. And the perfect crochet hook for you is going to be deeply personal. One factor is how you hold your crochet hook. Are you a knife holder? Are you a pencil holder? And what hook actually feels good in your hands? Another thing to consider is whether you like ergonomic handles that are a little bit wider and maybe have a rubbery texture, or do you prefer thin metal handles? Another important point is, what is your budget? Some crochet hooks are very expensive and some are more budget friendly. And one of the most important things to consider is, what types of projects do you like to work on? Are you an amigurumi enthusiast like I am, or do you love to make garments, home decor, or blankets? So if you've never thought about which crochet hook style is best for you, I encourage you to do a little experimenting. The right crochet hook will make your hands happier and make finishing your projects even more fun. On page 18, I stumbled across a simple paragraph about S and Z twist yarns. This is something that I had never really heard of before, and so it sent me down this winding trail discovering what this means and why it matters. Yarns are made from several strands twisted together to create the desired weight. They can be spun with either an S or a Z twist, and the type of twist can affect the softness of the yarn. Looser spun yarns in particular may start to unravel as you crochet. Wait, what? That one little paragraph opened up a world that I didn't realize I needed to explore. The next thing I knew, I was reading articles, I was watching YouTube videos, and I had spent an entire half of an afternoon looking up the difference between S and Z twist yarns. So in case you're not familiar with S and Z twist yarns like I was, here is the basic gist of it. So when yarns are spun, the fibers are twisted together, and the direction of that twist will determine whether it's an S or a Z twist. S-twist yarns are fibers that have been spun, and the direction of that twist is like the shape of the letter S, that middle part. And Z-twist yarns is the exact opposite. Those fibers are twisted in a way so that the middle part of the letter Z, that's the angle of the twist. Now here's why this actually matters. Most yarns, especially ones that come from big box craft stores, are spun with an S twist. And this is especially beneficial for right-handed knitters. This is something incredibly interesting that I learned. Most yarns are spun with knitters in mind. And here's why this can get tricky for us as right-handed crocheters. Now, if you're a left-handed crocheter, this is probably a good thing for you, and I'll explain that in just a minute. But if you are a right-handed crocheter and you have an S-twist yarn, that yarn over motion that we use for crochet can actually untwist that S twist, and it especially happens with loosely twisted yarns. So you will notice if you're working with a yarn and it's starting to split, it's starting to untwist, it's because it's likely an S twist yarn and you're a right-handed crocheter. That blew my mind. But I did read that tightly spun S-twist yarns are fine for right-handed crocheters, but a Z-twist yarn is spun in the opposite direction, and it can actually work very well for right-handed crocheters. That yarn over actually increases that twist as we're working, so it makes the yarn not unravel and it causes it to be less splitty. What I found most interesting was commercially manufactured yarns are mostly made with knitters in mind, and right-handed knitters in particular. Now, if you are a lefty, you are in luck, and crocheting with S-twist yarns is actually going to be a great thing for you. Finally, something for the lefties out there. I wish I could remember where I got this tip from, but I read somewhere that if you're having trouble with your yarn and it is either untwisting or it's splitting, to pull the yarn from the opposite end. So if you are pulling from the outside, try pulling it from the inside of the yarn, and vice versa. So if you're pulling from the inside, try pulling from the outside. That actually may help. I don't know if it's true or not, but it's worth a try. I've just grabbed a handful of the yarns off of my shelves, and let's look and see if we can determine what the twist is. The first one is Hue and Me, and what I like about this one is that you can see the twist very, very easily. So I can see that the twist is going this direction, which means it's an S twist. I tried to choose yarns that I could see the twist on them very well, and this next one is Vivity from We Crochet, and let me look here. Yep, this one is also an S twist. Palette is another gorgeous yarn from We Crochet, and it is 100% an S twist. You can actually see this pretty well. I also grabbed the Premier Puzzle because these are two different colors that are twisted together, so it makes it really easy, but I think this one's a Z twist. This is Furls Wander, and it's definitely an S twist. This is Stylecraft Special DK, and yep, it's an S twist. This is We Love Yarn Recycled Cotton, and yep, it is an S twist. I actually think this is super interesting that out of all of these different yarns that the Premier Puzzle is the only one that looks to be a Z twist. So I would love to know if that was on purpose, if it's just the way they make some of their yarns, but now I am so curious about S and Z twist and I just want to know more. Today's video is brought to you by Squarespace. If you've ever thought about doing something more with your crochet, like sharing your projects, posting tutorials, or or maybe even selling some of those handmade items, Squarespace gives you a beautiful, simple way to do it. Whether you want to document your crochet journey, connect with others, or even try selling digital or finished pieces, everything is in one place and easy to use. You don't need to be a tech expert to build something that looks polished and professional. With Squarespace's clean and customizable templates, you can build a website that fits your style. No coding required. It's also budget-friendly. Squarespace brings everything together, whether you're starting a blog, sharing your patterns, or even opening up a little shop. That way you're not juggling a bunch of different tools and platforms. It's a simple all-in-one solution for anyone who wants to do a little bit more with their crochet without making it complicated or expensive. Their new Design Intelligence tools combines 2 decades of design experience with intuitive AI to help you build a website that is uniquely you. And if you're thinking about opening a shop, Squarespace gives you everything you need to sell online. From product listings with photos and videos, inventory tracking, shipping tools, and more. You can even print shipping labels straight from your dashboard to make order fulfillment smoother. Plus, with Squarespace Payments, you can start taking payments quickly and securely with options like Apple Pay, Afterpay, Klarna, and more. All managed from one place with no extra hassle. So if you're ready to take your crochet passion to the next level, or you just want a cozy personal space online, head to squarespace.com/Elise Rose Crochet to start your free trial. And when you're ready to launch, use the code Elise Rose Crochet to get 10% off your first purchase of a website or domain. Thank you so much to Squarespace for sponsoring today's video. I remember once getting a question from a fellow crocheter about why her granny squares were leaning to the right. She had no idea what was causing this, and at the time I didn't really have a great answer for her because I had never run into this issue myself. But now that I've read this book, I know exactly what the problem was, and I wish that I could have given her a better answer at the time. What had happened was that her granny square had become biased. Not that kind of biased, but the kind where it begins to slant and looks more like a diamond or a rhombus than a square. I had never noticed this before, but as I was testing it out and crocheting a granny square, I noticed that as I was crocheting, after every round, I would straighten everything out. And I was using the Stylecraft Special DK, which is an acrylic yarn, which that works really well with an acrylic yarn to just kind of handle it and straighten it out and pull it, and you can shape it a little bit. But I noticed that I did that after every single round. So I was just fixing them as I went. So with this one, I tried really hard not to do that, and my square turned out a little slanty. Now, it's not super noticeable, but I can see that this is leaning a little bit in this direction. But I tried Janie's way of doing it, and it made a perfect square. No tugging and shaping needed. Now, this is my perfect little square done Janie's way, and many of you are probably already doing this, and that is to change the direction every round. And what that means is once you make your first round, you're going to flip it to the back side and work the next round. Then once you bind off that color, you're going to flip it back again to the right side and work the third round. So you flip it back and forth, right side, wrong side, right side, wrong side, and that naturally corrects that slant and you end up with a perfect little square. This next tip is really interesting and one that I had never heard of before. Janie explains that when you have to frog or unravel a project, the yarn that you're pulling out can become stretched and uneven so that when you go to crochet again with it, it can actually distort those stitches. They can be stretched out and they may not match the stitches that were from the yarn that had not been frogged. Janie explains that if you frog or unravel part of a project, that yarn that you have pulled out can become stretched and uneven. And if you end up using that yarn to finish your project, that unraveled section can actually cause some issues. Those stitches and rows may not match the unraveled section. Her advice is one that I have never heard of before, and she actually recommends cutting out that unraveled section and adding in fresh yarn. That way your tension and those stitches look consistent throughout the project. Now that definitely doesn't mean that you just have to throw that yarn away. You could put it back in your stash, you could wind it back up, and if it's just a small section, there are so many things that you can do with scraps of yarn. yarn, so it's not a waste. And if you are going to use that unraveled yarn, you may want to give it a little TLC. I read that you can soak it or give it a little steam, and that will help to get all of those bends and those kinks and those wrinkles out of it. This next tip answers a question that I have gotten so many times about gauge swatches. Have you ever made a gauge swatch and you nailed the stitch count but your row gauge was off? Or maybe you got the rows right, but your stitch count just won't add up. Once you've tried the usual trick of going up or down in crochet hook size, you've got a decision to make. If you've tried all the tips for achieving the correct gauge but still have a problem, you need to decide which gauge is more important and choose between that of the stitches or of the rows. In other words, don't drive yourself crazy trying to make it perfect. Figure out which measurement matters most for you. Is it the stitch count or the row count? Do you care more about width or height for that project, and prioritize that one? It's a simple but empowering tip that helps you to move forward with confidence. One of the topics that I was really hoping Janie would cover in that is how to choose the perfect color palette, and she did not disappoint. Janie has an incredible eye for color. Every single one of her projects is absolutely stunning, and her color combinations really are like a work of art. And when people have that gift, I always wonder, how do they do it? And I am so glad that she broke it down into these simple steps. In the book, she starts off with a little section about basic color theory, and it's broken down into easy to understand categories. She talks about monochromatic, complementary, analogous, and triadic colors, and she's got the little color wheel and a diagram to explain it all. But the real gem for me was a paragraph where she explains exactly how she chooses her color palettes. She starts off by choosing a few shades from the same color family, a monochromatic base. Then she adds a little interest by choosing a darker and a lighter version of that color. From there, she chooses one or two complementary colors to really bring the palette to life. It's a method that blends structure and creativity, and it really makes each one of her projects feel very balanced. What I love about her approach is that she takes out the mystery of how to choose colors while still leaving a lot of room for creativity. And there you have it, simple crochet tips that can lead to big improvements in your projects. But we would all love to hear from you. Let us know in the comment section which one was your favorite and what are your best crochet tips. I hope you have a great rest of your week. Stay safe and happy stitching.